Now, wouldn't it?
Hi, this is Marlene, and I want to welcome you to another episode of Stories of the Supernatural. Whether you're watching a video or listening to a podcast, please like and subscribe to us so that you can get notification of when a new show is released. Links to videos or MP3 files can be found on miamighostchronicles.com. Go to marlenepardo.com for information on new book releases. I narrate several podcast series that can be found on major podcast platforms and can also be listened to via Alexa, Sonos, and other home systems. Look for Supernatural Storytime for scary storytelling, Nightshade Diary for classic horror and adventure stories, Stories of the Supernatural for interviews with different guests on the show. If you want to get noteworthy news about the paranormal world, true crime, conspiracy stories, and anything that is just plain weird, you can visit Strange Than Fiction Stories tab at miamighostchronicles.com or find us on Blogspot. I want to thank you for being part of my audience, and I think you are all wonderful. Hi, everybody. This is Marlene with Stories of the Supernatural. How's everybody doing? Good? I'm doing good. And for those people that follow my chicken adventures, because everybody heard about the last my last show that they took off with. I lost 3 of my chickens. I don't know. I've got like a mega. I call him the mega nemesis. I think it's a golden eagle, but it's a much larger bird of prey that actually went after one of my actual full-grown chickens, and I thought, okay, I got to keep. Anyway, the other day. Everybody knows that I have some certain chickens I have in therapy, but what I do is I'll let them out under supervision, like during the day, usually. And people have seen videos of the ones that I have, the blind one, the ones that are in recovery. But I'll let them out like in the morning if I'm going to be here during the day. And the other day where I'm sitting at my office, my window, I have line of sight out to the front and to the side. And I'm sitting here and I look over my monitor and I see this flapping of wings. And I'm thinking, those stupid roosters are fighting again. Believe it or not, what saved the day is some of my young roosters. I had put out some of my chickens, a rooster and 2 of my hens, my therapy. I let them out in the side yard so they don't get picked on. Turns out that same hawk, falcon, I don't know what the heck it is. I'm thinking it's so big that might even be a golden eagle, not a bald eagle, was coming after one of the hens. And one of those young roosters that's always walking around because they've kicked him out of the regular coop, he attacked. And what I saw, the flapping of wings, was him trying to defend the hen. So I run out there and I'm like, oh, and then I'm looking around. I see my hen. Thank God I saved her. Yay. But bottom line is, I can't let them out unless I sit out there and I supervise chickens. It's like, yeah, it's kind of crazy out here. And I know some of these birds are territorial, and when they find a food source, man, they come back. So I've lost 3, and I almost lost the 4th. And so, yeah, I've got to take more videos. I know people are saying, what happened to the videos that you promised? I know. And it's crazy, things like that. But you know how that goes. So yes, that's what's happening in Marlene's Chicken Kingdom. Anyway, I'm gonna, as an introduction to the guest that I'm gonna have on, I'm gonna read you a little story. But this is the real story. This is for real. And I'm going to talk about a man. His name was Ralph Papa Thorson. Okay. Born in 1926, passed away in 1991. He was an American bounty hunter. And in 1976, and I'm reading this, by the way, from Wikipedia. So I just doesn't, whatever. It doesn't matter because it's not that deep. He was a subject of a biography by Christopher Keene. All right. And in the biography, it's quoted saying, he's the only man I know who can do a bastard's job with taste and come off looking like a nice guy. And also, the last movie that Steve McQueen made in 1980, titled The Hunter, was based on this biography by Christopher Keene. They took a lot of liberties. And in a minute, you'll get to. Okay, from 1969 to 1976, over 100 people lived in Papa's house at various times. And I quote, they consisted mostly of men Papa had picked up and sent to jail. Not only did he house them and find them jobs where he could, he counseled them, loaned them money, sometimes bailed them out, and only rarely kicked them out when they took extreme advantage. During that time, Papa also served the Temple of Inspired Living as a bishop, which enabled him to perform marriages and negotiate civil and religious matters on behalf of the temple. By 1976, he had logged 5,000 cases of bounty hunting, including Squeaky Fromm plus another Manson family member he picked up at Spawn Ranch. Now we come to the part. Papa's habits included taping most of his phone conversation and, quote, instead of writing letters, he tapes his voice and mails off to cassettes. His view on astrology was that it discovered, according to him, what we are and not how we'd like to see ourselves. He attributed his luck in a dangerous profession to picking the right astrological moment to hunt the man down. Papa states, and I want you to this is what he himself said, what he's describing he's doing. I relied on a condition which happens when I confront a situation I'm not exactly sure of. A dreamlike state where everything moves in slow motion. Fear is not permitted because the territory around me is my own. I control it. I expect to succeed. I'm sure of it. Not cocky, but convinced. It's almost as if some secret force jacks up my perceptions. It's a twilight zone. I enter it just moments before the confrontation. It might be the reason I'm still alive. By the way, it only served him to about 1991, where supposedly, and this is alleged, he died because of a car bomb. But anyway, that's my intro to my guest. Okay, this is the first time he's been here on Stories of the Supernatural, and his name is Michael Jaco. He's a Navy SEAL Team 6 operator and CIA security operative with expert intuitive abilities, developed over 35 years of extensive combat experience. With over 20 years of experience as an intuitive remote viewer and remote influencer in diverse environments, including combat, Michael has expertly honed his skills in the higher consciousness realms. As a master training specialist, Michael has trained thousands of people in extremely high levels of personal development. Michael's mission and life focus is to help anyone quickly and easily develop the skills for success in all aspects of human achievement. And we're going to talk to him about intuition and how important it is. So help me welcome him. How are you today, Michael?
Outstanding, Marlene. Thanks for having me on.
No, on the contrary.
Great introduction. I love that story. Very good.
And this guy, by the way, I was reading his biography. He had a crazy life.
No doubt.
And I read that part about he would enter. Basically, he's talking about doing an altered state of consciousness. Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And by the way, he would go after some hardened criminals. It wasn't like he was picking up, the local drunk who skipped bail. Back then, he was going after some very dangerous people.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason I put that in there is, he believe it or not, he believed in astrology. He believed in the timing of astrology. He says that he would pick and choose when he would go after certain, I guess, bail jumpers, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, what he describes what he was going to do is, and I'm sure maybe you've heard of it, which is where not only intuition, but that you actually see the outcome of what you're going to do in a certain situation.
Yeah, absolutely. And, becoming a Navy SEAL, you kind of have that, you learn to have that kind of focus. And that's once you have that focus, you can apply it to anything in life. And that's what I started to do. I started to look into how I could use that to go after terrorists. So that was one of the things I did in the SEAL teams and eventually in the CIA. We really focused on getting terrorists. So I would see those terrorists like you're talking about, and I would see us taking those terrorists down. And it was like one after another, we started having that happen. I worked on, helping to find Osama bin Laden. It was my old SEAL Team 6 Red Squadron that came in and actually got him. I was there in Pakistan when it happened. Within an hour after it happened, you've probably seen that scene where Hillary Clinton is holding her mouth like this, and there's all these people in the White House Situation Room, and they're all like, "Oh my God!" That was part of bin Laden's head blown off that they saw. I saw the same scene, same time. So it's interesting, the intuition that you use, like this gentleman described. There is no fear involved because the fear is basically a limiter. It keeps you constrained. keeps you in a lower state of consciousness. So when you're in these higher states of consciousness, that you learn over time how to go into those zones of consciousness and stay in those zones of consciousness and focus like you're describing this gentleman did, and he sees the outcome. It's unbelievable the abilities that you can have, that you can tap into. You know, I tapped into doing remote viewing and influencing and all kind of amazing things. All of us have these abilities, everyone, but you can't get there if you're in fear state. So like we're experiencing right now, there's a lot of fear out there in America and the world.
Right.
You have to learn how to move out of those fear consciousness states and move into higher levels of consciousness, intuitive states of consciousness. Now we both live in Florida, and I just recently moved to Florida within the last 6. Yeah, I know, it's right. It's like, oh, I'm so glad.
Some people are going, Marty.
That was an intuitive move because I didn't know why I was moving to Florida. I was like, okay, it's time to go. And I was like, I was living in Florida at the time. So I moved here in advance of my wife, and eventually she came and joined me. I was like, yes, it's good here. You need to come. So we're here together now, and we've been here for many months now, and we're liking it. We're gonna settle down here. But now that I'm here, I'm looking back at California. They're remasking again and locking everybody down. It's like, and it's crazy. So it's intuition is very powerful. It can serve you in many different ways. It's not just in dangerous situations, because I think, like we talked about earlier, a lot of people have been in dangerous situations and they just kind of know what to do, and they survive. I've definitely survived a lot of combat experiences because of that, but I use it in every aspect of my life now. I've used it, in investing. I've used it, in my relationships. As you ladies know, if you have a man that's intuitive, life is a lot better. And also, as a man being intuitive, it's a lot better for me as well, because I understand, my partner much better. And as time goes on, the more intuitive, the more in tune that I get, the better my relationship with my wife is. And it's pretty amazing. I get that in everything that I do now.
Well, I tell everybody, because we mentioned it earlier before we started recording, how people sometimes talk themselves out of their intuition because they want to overanalyze it.
Right.
And they feel like, I don't want to be stupid. My imagination is running away with me, especially when it doesn't make sense. How's that? Mm-hmm. And I tell everybody, you hear these stories about the person that at the last minute decides, I'm not going to get on that plane, and it goes down. Oh, yeah. And then I say, do you know how it makes you wonder how many people that got on there had that same intuition? But of course, you're never going to find out because they went down with a plane.
Sure.
All right. And you'll hear most of these stories. These people, they have no reason why they fear or they have that last minute decision not to get on there. Yeah. The only difference is that they don't. Mm-hmm. And then you hear the stories where they kind of like, it's sometimes so overwhelming, or they've learned to listen to it without, how can I say, because sometimes we tend to be, depending on the personality, a little bit over analytical.
Yeah.
And you don't want to think, could I be just, why me? Why would I be the bad luck person that the plane's going to go down? Mm-hmm. And by the way, this is different because I used to, when I was doing hypnosis, I used to work with people that were scared of going on plane rides. They would like, this for them was like, but that's different. It's a different type of fear phobia mm-hmm. than when you're okay with going. And I'm going to use the plane ride as an example. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden you have this feeling of, I shouldn't do that. It's different. It's a totally different kind of fear. And if you want to explain better, especially since you've been in such high risk situations, the difference between positive intuition versus fear.
Yeah, I can give you lots of examples. It's really good because when I was, combat, if you're not in a really good state of consciousness, mm-hmm. you can see people that aren't in that good state. If people are in fear, or if they're like really angry, it's like, I remember guys were saying, I just want to get in and fight and kick some ass, kind of like that bravado stuff. Mm-hmm. And the guys that were like scared of getting, into conflict and stuff like that, I saw all of those guys, most of those guys that I knew that were like that in combat are all dead. So they attracted that.
Oh, yes.
Those of us that were, very positive, very, very focused, like you described in the beginning with that one gentleman, which was an excellent description. He was very focused. There was no fear. There can be no fear, because if you have fear, you will attract that. You will
Yes.
bring that in.
You vibrate and you pull it to you.
You vibrate to
Hmm.
that. You attract what you think most about. So if you're focused on success, which those of us that have been in the special forces and stuff like that, you don't get there if you're focused on losing. You have to be
Yes.
extremely focused on winning, and that's not the only thing either. You have to not only be focused on it, but you have to like move in that direction. You have to keep moving, because things are constantly going to come at you to disrupt you, and that's the way life is. So a very strong intuitive like myself, I'll get feelings. Something's off, something's not right, and then I'll like focus. And as a remote viewer, I started to see things real time on the freeway that we were getting ready to go out on in a combat zone. And I was like, well, we can't go out because I see something up there is going to blow us up. And I just got the feeling. So I'd hold of my teams, and then we hear a big boom, and somebody else got that bomb. So then they clear the highway, and it was like, okay, I'm remote viewing, and it's okay, it's clear. So all it is just taking your intuitive abilities, your intuition, your imagination, and sending it
Hmm.
out. As I work that muscle, just like when you work a muscle in the gym, it gets stronger and stronger and stronger, the more resistance you have on it. So I continue to use my remote viewing. I would get a feeling, and I would be like, okay, what is it? And it started to be one day ahead in the future, I would see attacks coming,
Okay.
and as much as a week ahead. And then I would tell
Yeah,
my
you
team,
beat me to my next question because I was going to ask you,
nice.
when did it go just from when you went out remote viewing to when it was coming to you before you even were seeking that information? And this is what you're describing.
Yeah, yeah. So it's because you're opening yourself up to it.
Uh-huh.
Why I'm
Okay.
not doubting it. So the doubting, a lot of us have doubts, like you're talking about. I want confirmation. I got to see it. You're not going to see this stuff oftentimes. It's
Okay.
not going to reveal itself until it reveals itself. And I would see stuff like we're talking about. First, just a few minutes before we go on the highway, and then I would see it a day ahead, and then as much as a week, and I would describe exactly what was coming to the
Okay.
T. Times that an attack would happen, who the attack was. I could see the people in the vehicle. I described the vehicle. I said what they're going to do: explode this building and so forth. They're going to be near a building where we're at, but we'll be safe. But it's going to be close to where we're at, so we need to stay away from that area. And just like I describe it, what happened. Now, the analytical guys, like we're talking about,
Yeah.
they would be like, I don't know how you're doing this stuff, and I don't believe in it. But if you got something, let us know so we can be safe.
Hmm.
I'm like, okay, I have to work with
Yes.
that. So, they haven't developed that, but everyone can. And I've taught a lot of people over time how they can develop it. And it's really quite simple. I've taught people to do this within hours, and they're effective with it. So it's a belief system. Obviously, anything that you don't believe is definitely not coming to you. But if you see, well, I've read about this, or I know somebody, because I'm a good example. I'm like, a lot of people are like, well, you're Navy SEAL, 24 years, CIA for 11. Maybe you got something going on. I'll listen to you. And I'm like, that's
Because
beautiful.
at that point you were an authority figure. If you wouldn't have
Yeah.
been,
So
they would have
it's
said, forget it.
authority figure, and a lot of people were like, they still don't believe it. Like I said, so they don't want to believe it, but they're seeing it. I'm telling people like how it's going to happen, and they're like, okay, we'll believe whatever you say because you've been right. We don't understand it, don't know how to do it, don't want to believe it.
Right. But just in case.
Actually, after they work with me, they go like sometimes badmouth me, because and that's human nature. I
Yes.
don't know. It's unfortunate, but if there's something you don't understand, it doesn't fit your paradigm of consciousness or what you believe in. Could be religious or whatever.
Yes.
Then you're going to knock something that doesn't fit, even if it works. Which is unfortunate.
Yes.
That's the way human consciousness is, and that's what we're facing right now in life. A lot of people are
Hmm.
trapped in, believing certain things that just, if you have any kind of critical thinking, you can see that's not really right. It's not work. Like here in Florida, we don't have any masking. We have the lowest rate of,
Right. Exactly.
infection rate. And other states are still, locking down.
Oh, we're
It's
hurting.
all over the world. It's so the real science is right here, but they're making up science and people are believing it. It's very unfortunate, but that's kind of the way consciousness works.
And you know what? Even living in Florida, I think that people have to realize that because and because of as a hypnotherapist, people are very resistant to change because of their subconscious mind. Consciously, they might say, I need to change or I want to change. But
Very
their
good.
subconscious mind is always that pain and pleasure principle, which is the unknown. Change is pain. Pleasure is what I know. I might not be happy with it, but at least this is my familiar ground.
Yep.
And I find that individuals, everybody's different, but as collectively, everybody keeps looking at it was great before. And I think sometimes people have a hard time saying that that's never going to come back.
Right.
And I don't mean this in a bad way.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that hopefully we've learned a lot of lessons in a very short period of time.
Yeah.
We have to go forward and kind of like accept that change, and not only collectively, but on an individual basis. All right. And I see that a lot of people sometimes they, and I know that you work with people as far as them achieving certain metrics, whatever it might be. All right. And I remember I would have people that would come to me for behavior modification to change. And I would tell them, okay, you know what I want you to do when you go home? And they'd go, what? I said, I want you to rearrange the furniture in your living room. And they'd look at me and go, what? Go, yeah, I want you to rearrange. And the thing is twofold. It tells the universe you are going to change, to manifest it. Number two, it's very simple. You're starting to change. And the reason why I'm saying this is that people sometimes they do it all up here, but they never execute.
Excellent.
Okay. And I wanted to ask you, as far as sometimes people get that intuition, like I need to change, I need to move, I need to do whatever, but they're resistant to it. What advice do you give to people who I'm sure come to you and say, hey, I want to achieve this, which usually involves change, but you kind of see that they kind of like sabotage themselves despite what they're telling you?
Yeah, that's the rub. It's tough. I like to work with people that are super motivated, but there's even myself, everyone's resistant in some way.
Sure.
So you have to desire something really strongly. Like when I became an Navy SEAL, I wanted it bad enough to the point where I would rather die rather than not achieve that. And that sounds like extreme, but when you talk to a lot of people that have achieved that, it's like we all had kind of the same idea. And because you had such focus, that led to achievement. Now, when I came back, I was actually an instructor, so I got to see, like how people have hypnotized themselves into thinking that they're not worthy, or they can't make it, or someone else in their family doesn't believe in them, so they don't believe in it. There's like underlying issues. That extreme focus cuts through all that. So if I were to say anything to anyone that really desires change, you got to really, 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 really desire it, because you're going to try and sabotage yourself.
Right. And use other people as an excuse, by the way.
Well, you got to stay super focused. And every time that I've done that super focus, I've achieved amazing things. Yes. Like just a couple of years ago, we'll get off the intuitive thing because it's kind of like out there for a lot of people, but we'll talk on a physical level, how we use my intuition. So I was like, okay, it's been 17 years since I've done a bodybuilding contest. Here I am, I'm like at 50. I was a couple of years ago, so I was 59. And I was like, I'm going to do a master's. I'm going to do a master's contest. And so here I am. I'm 220 pounds, so pretty big, pretty big for my, normally 180 is about where I need to be. So I'm like, okay, so I need to lose 50 pounds, to get to where I really want to be. And because 170 or so is like perfect. You can be a little bit, I found it'll be a little bit more, but 170. So down to 170, 180. So I'm looking at, 5 pounds, a month. I was like, I can do that. It's like a little over a pound a week.
Mm-hmm.
And I started doing it for 10 months. I dieted down, bodybuilding contest diet, because I've done many bodybuilding contests before, but 17 years since I've done one. So for 10 months, I dieted all the way down and then went in and won. So the whole time I'm dieting, I'm thinking there's people that I'm going to be competing with. What are they doing? I'm going to win. I'm going to get first place trophy. This, thinking positive, focusing on it. Rowing, doing all the aerobics, doing all the weightlifting, trimming my diet down. It's like, oh, that's too much. I got to turn. So finally the day comes and you have all those weedy jeebies, and you get out there, you pose, you're pretty much naked. You got a little thing over your.
My husband was a semi-pro one, in the 80s. In the 80s. And every once in a while he'll say, I think about it, and I look at him and he's like, forget it. Because of what you just said.
Yeah, but anyone can do it. I mean, I was
no,
pretty,
but it demands a lot.
You can get it down. So yeah, I did it. I focused on it, and I made it happen. But a lot of it was, like we're talking about, is that extreme focus. So you keep at it. 1 week would go by. I was like, I didn't lose any weight. I got to lose 2 pounds this month, so I got to really focus. So there were days, weeks like that. So if someone comes in, like, and they have a desire for change, just what you did, physically changing something in their life, being creative with it. So you're using your creative mind, the intuitive side of your brain, the creative side, the right feminine side of your brain, and you go in and you change things around. You get creative, you change things around. That's what I was doing with my diet the whole time, because my diet, when I was in my 30s and 40s, I could diet a certain way and work out a certain way, and boom,
drop weight.
Boom. This time I had to be more creative, because older, things change, and you had to move stuff around. So that creative aspect, like you did with go and move furniture around, doing something physically, and doing it in a creative, intuitive way, starts that process.
That change. You're changing your. And I would tell them, if you don't want to do that, I want you to go to a new restaurant that you've never eaten at before. I want you to go another way. The change, and it's and I know a lot of my audience will be on board with this. It's like you're telling the universe. You're not just thinking about it, you're executing. That's that vibration that we were talking about, that I want to change and I want to bring in the change. And you might think, what does that have to do? Once you start changing your environment, you start doing things that are outside of your norm. Okay. That starts shifting everything vibration wise, and to the universe telling them, I want to do this. Okay. Plus, the plasticity of the brain is we get certain things that we like driving, that we know that basically you could do it without thinking about it. Mm-hmm. All right. So you got to start putting in these new trenches in your brain of new behavior. Okay. Of actions, not thinking about it, of actual actions. Mm-hmm. And it starts with something that might have nothing to do with, maybe, like you said, lose weight. Okay. If that was the case, or a new regimen, let's say, whatever. And I'm going to put in my story comparable to what many a few years ago, I was trying to get into a department, and I was older than most, but they do, how they have certain entrance things that you need to do something with a certain amount of time and whatever. So I knew I had to lose weight. I had to be able to jog certain amounts of distance. I had a park next to my house, which was a big park where they would have 2 and 3 mile things, because the cross country teams from the schools would go to. Nice. And I said, I'm going to start there. And I said, but I know that my subconscious mind, by the way, that park would close at sundown. Okay. So I said, I know myself. So what I did was I also got in my car and I mapped out with my car's odometer a 2 mile stretch around my neighborhood. And then the third was, there was a hospital out there with a big lake where they had people would, as a matter of fact, from the hospital would walk out there. That was like my fallback. And I also had a change of clothing because I knew it. And by the way, this is the way the subconscious works. It'll be real sneaky. Somehow God, sundown came and I just couldn't go and do what I was supposed to do. So I would make myself, it's like, okay, well, I know I can walk now. And if I was out on the road, okay, because I worked on the roads on cases, it would be, I can stop at the hospital, and change in my car, but I didn't give myself an out. You know what I'm saying?
There you go. Nice.
And at the beginning I started walking, and then pretty soon I jogged, and then one day I said, you know what? I'm going to try and jog the 2 miles. And I did it. This was, by the way, several, by the way, I did pass that thing. And my son, who was in the Navy, had come home. And by the way, at Coronado Island.
Whoa. Wow. Okay.
Yeah. He tells me, Mom, I'll go with you. Well, you go. And we jogged. And he goes, Mom, you're better than a lot of the people that I'm with in the Navy. They couldn't jog 2 miles.
Wow. Okay.
He was telling me about that. But anyway, my point is that the way the subconscious mind works, like what you were talking about, that you have to give yourself that talk, is because your subconscious mind will try to sabotage you from doing, even though you might logically want that outcome, it will do it in very sneaky ways because it wants you to stay in that, like what you were saying, when you start at the beginning, I have to lose how much weight? Your subconscious mind was going, how much work that's gonna take. That kind, even though I'm sure you were pretty much aware of what it took to get there.
Oh yeah.
And Michael, I'm going to ask you something. I'm going to veer off with this, and this has to do, as a matter of fact, what we were talking about, only intuition.
Okay.
And you know what? I used to have a lot of people that would come to me with anxiety, fear, which God knows in the last year we've been amped up. And I think that a lot of, there's what I call the industry of fear, okay, which is there's a lot of, I'm not going to say that people should be Pollyannish, like believe like, oh, everything is wonderful. But I think that we are driven to higher, everything is fearful. And one of the things that I wanted to bring up is that this paper came out like in 1984, okay, by a guy named Dick Sutphen. And he, as a matter of fact, he passed away last year.
Oh,
and I don't know if you're familiar with him at all.
Oh yeah, I love it.
You are, right?
Yeah.
And he talks about how because people don't realize that when you get scared, you go into hypnosis. Mm-hmm. When you're anxious, you know how people say, I got home and I don't remember how, you're hypnotized. My point being that I think a lot of the things, whether it's through the beats of music or just high anxiety to wipe the mind clean, and basically how can I tell you, we have a critical factor, which doesn't allow like negative. In other words, normally if that critical factor was there, some people more than others, somebody tells you something or you hear something, you kind of like, does that sound right? No, I don't know. But when that critical factor is down, which is when you're hypnotized, it goes straight into your subconscious mind, and I guess my question is, as far as people nowadays that we're living sometimes that it's almost like we're get used too much on fear. Everything is, I want to say, apocalyptic kind of. What do you advise as far as, and the reason why I'm saying is that you, I'm sure, have been in situations where it's real fear. It's like, this is not like made up or overdone. This is truly where I could lose my life in this. That what the effects of real, continued or systemic fear is, which is sometimes what I'm concerned with. And, I still have a lot of people that I talked in the background. I don't do the hypnotherapy anymore, as far as how damaging it can be long-term to the individual.
Yeah. So, fear is definitely debilitating. So what I would do is, like, when I started the first hand-to-hand program for the Navy SEAL team. And what we found out that is a lot of people through past conditioning hold on to a fear about some kind, usually a fear about fighting. So we taught them very early. The first class that I did, I would teach classes
Okay.
before we even started fighting, before I even started teaching them techniques. And in that class, I taught them about how fear is a basically constrictor. It constricts, your thinking. We talk about the neurons, basically the ways that the brain works. So fear is constricting. It basically keeps you in a slower consciousness state, so you can't access information quickly. And as an intuitive, when you're very relaxed, even in a combat situation, even while I'm fighting, I'm very relaxed. I'm very open. And in that openness and in that relaxed state of consciousness, I'm faster. So my speed is actually faster, because if I'm like fearful, everything's so
Okay.
but if I'm like super relaxed, and my speed is like just incredibly fast. And it's the same thing if I'm pulling the trigger, or whether I'm using a knife, or whether I'm hitting someone. It's all about the consciousness states. And you talked about neuroplasticity. The brain can be taught to do anything. So you can learn to overcome fear. And that's what we taught right from the beginning, how fear was a constrictor. So they had to understand that. And while we trained, if we saw them start to constrict, go into that fear state, we would have them relax, go into wide angle vision, breathe. Breathing is one of the greatest things, because if you're breathing, you're not focused on, the brain is telling you, or what your heart is telling you, or anything like that. Because you might get, as you get a little it's faster, blood pressure goes up, and you're like you start to all you can see
you
is
telescope on your
telescope. Very good. So when you open your eyes, basically you activate neurons. Literally activate neurons that start an alpha brainwave pattern. So beta.
Thank you, alpha. I was about to ask you, what kind of brainwaves are we talking about? Alpha, right?
Yeah, very good. So so you're very well informed. So it's beautiful. Obviously, as a hypnotist, you know all about the way the brain works. It's good.
Yeah,
it's very nice. Yeah.
Well, this is the thing, when people come to you for nothing as dramatic, but behavior modification is really what it is. Sometimes people's what they place themselves in, they're out, whether it's alpha, beta, is basically how receptive you are to whatever it is. But exactly what you were talking, which is people don't realize that in your case, we were talking, but fear, fear is your reality is your perception. So to somebody that's got a phobia about spiders, you're like, oh, who cares? But to this person, they're wigged out. So their perception is their reality as far as the fear reaction. And people don't realize that nowadays people walk around with, besides the normal everyday fears everybody has, we're getting heaped with fear, which makes everybody, how can I say, pessimistic. They don't make plans.
Controllable. Yeah.
Not hopeful. They, they don't, and I'm sure everybody's read stories about how addiction and suicides have gone up, across the board for a lot of different reasons, whether you had a previous problem or just developed. All of this comes about because people are hopeless and they don't see the light at the end of the tunnel. And besides organic problems that a person might have, I see this because, I watch TV and I'm thinking, what, man, they're not giving us a break. They're not giving us a break, because even though, and I want to say Florida again, we have a lot of good things, but there's still a lot of people walking around that are very fearful. Very fearful, more than they do, that they should be. And I'm thinking to myself, like you said, the cortisol, that hormone that you release, all right, which they say that it's good if you need it, but if it shoots off in your brain and you don't use it, like that fear of flight kind of thing, basically it does horrible things to your body. And sometimes it's almost like people need to fall back into less fear or putting up a barrier, using their intuition in the sense of that everything is going to be okay.
Yeah. So when we would have people, we would teach them this in the hand-to-hand program, and I've used it throughout my life now, and everything I teach. When you feel the fear coming in, when you feel it start to grip you, you have to learn how to like notice it, let it go. You just relax and let it go through your body. So if you start to have these thoughts that usually make you fearful, grip you, feel them coming in, you let them go. It's almost like if someone were to come and grab you,
yes,
you just relax yourself and you just pull yourself away. So that's what fear is. Fear is coming in to grab you, and you just like we teach how to like you just get soft and just like pull your hand away.
right.
It's the same thing with fear. When fear comes into your body, you feel it start to grip you. If you get in a fight with it, it's like, oh, here comes a fear. Oh my God, if you're done. It's going to take you a long time to let that go. But when you start to notice it sooner and sooner and sooner, when it comes in, you just relax and let it go. And then when you're in that state of consciousness, that relaxed state of consciousness, that intuitive, that beautiful, creative that you're teaching people, go and change your furniture. That's the first little step. And that's what you do with the fear. When you're starting to feel the fear come in, first of all, you got to get away from the news, because the news is like basically MK Ultra programming. Because when I worked in the CIA,
I'm glad you brought that up.
Using the
45 to 72 beats music. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So it's out there, So I was
talk about that, because I think people hear that, Michael, and they kind of think, oh, no, they don't do stuff like that. They do. Everybody thinks that this is like a Clancy novel. Oh, they don't really do stuff like that, do they?
I love the Clancy novels, and I read them when I was a boy. And I was like, yeah, there's. And then I started to do that stuff, and I'm like, wow, this stuff is really going on out here. I'm glad I'm not part of it.
I want you to talk a little bit about, if you can, about what you can, about really sometimes how people are manipulated through various avenues, like you said, the news, and some of it is not meant to, but others, there is a purpose behind it.
Yeah, I think almost 99% of the news at this point is designed to put fear in you, to manipulate you, control your consciousness. So you have to learn how to do like what we're doing. We're giving alternative news, really, where people can come in and learn really good things that can help them and really overcome. Like we're talking about traumas, fears, and so forth. Those are the great things that humanity faces right now. Learning to overcome the fears that are being impressed on us. They've been pressing on us for a long time. I was just with a group last night, and we were talking about the city council, even here in Sarasota, Florida, where the basically the school council is not very good. So we've heard about these school councils that are trying to manipulate our children, manipulate their consciousness. So it's a battle. It's a battle everywhere. Even here in beautiful Florida, where we think we're all very, very conservative, very everyone works well together. We love each other, and everything's beautiful. There's still problems here. So everywhere there's problems, we have to learn how to face those, not have fear of them.
Yes.
Not to sit back and go, oh, there's nothing I can do. We're all very strong. We're all very powerful. You have to get over the fear that you don't count,
Right. And I think that if we didn't count, it wouldn't matter. They wouldn't try so hard to make us behave a certain way or do that. As a matter of fact, in Miami-Dade County, the school director, for the Miami-Dade County, he just resigned. He's going to Los Angeles. And it was really funny because two months ago, one of these people videotaped him, angry parents chasing him, a bunch of Cuban parents going in Spanish, running after him, and he ducked in, and I was looking at that. He's not going to be around for long. Sure
I
enough.
didn't know. I was wondering what I figured the citizens were kind of like revolting on him. That's why he's like, you
Oh,
guys.
they were chasing him. You don't
Oh,
want
they
to,
didn't
and they
know
were,
anything.
and somebody taped it, and of course, and he's like, and you see these policemen, he ducks into the back door into the main building for the school board, for the school system. And they announced like a couple of days ago that he resigned and he's going to take up a position in the school
LA
district somewhere
County.
for out in LA.
Oh, poor LA.
Yeah. And but I'm glad you pointed that out, because that's sometimes it takes, you got to come back and keep working on that. And finally,
That's beautiful, Marlene. I'm glad you shared that. I didn't know that. I was like, something happened. So now you just pointed out. I'm glad.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to say, I think that everything that's everybody looks, despite the bad things that have happened, I think that there's always good. I'm an optimist, by the way.
Me too.
We've learned a lot of difficult lessons, and we're realizing now that there's a lot of things that we should have been paying attention to.
Very good. Yeah.
All along.
Yeah.
Okay. There is a lot of positive things that have come about because of everything. It's been kind of very difficult and uncomfortable is a nice way of saying it, but
sure.
People now have realized, people that were just floating along, where in life, I'm too busy, I'm going to work. It's like, I'm not paying attention to what's going on in my kid's school. I'm not paying attention to what laws are being passed. I'm not, unless it just plunks me on the head, hey, I gotta go to work. I'm multitasking, I'm texting. A lot of people have realized now, I cannot do that anymore. Look what happened. And by the way, this has been years in the making.
Oh yeah.
As in the mindset, and as far as words, wow, that you go, how can so many people be on the same page in all these different institutions? How'd they do that? You don't do that overnight at all.
Yeah, no, it didn't happen overnight. It's all the way back to World War II when the Nazis basically left Germany and came to America. So there's like 1,500 paperclip Nazis that we know of, at least. I think there's a lot more that came here and started to integrate. Now, there were some families that were already here, political families actually, that rose high all the way to presidency. They helped them come over. They helped establish them.
Yes.
And there was a lot of three-letter agencies, CIA, FBI, and all the agencies now that are like basically restricting us and controlling us.
Yes. And I think it took back then, nobody would have believed that the government was willing to do against a sworn enemy that we had just gone to war with. Nobody would believe that.
It was happening. Yeah. They infiltrated us. They basically did a good job of it. But like you're saying, there are positives that are happening. People are starting to see that and starting to push back on it.
Well, and also not only push back, but saying it can, which is what I tell everybody, it can never be the way it was before, because that had a lot of problems. Maybe you didn't see it on the surface, but underneath, there was a lot of serious stuff going on. We can never let that happen again, ever.
A lot of those institutions that we thought were good, we're learning now that they're completely corrupt.
No, everybody, I mean, we've seen even with major corporations.
Oh, yeah.
That you think all you're doing is either selling a product or a service. Like, what does it matter to you? And all of a sudden, everybody's political. It's like, what's going on? What is this? So even that's what I'm saying. A lot of people now are taking notice. Like, what? Yeah, it was a very rude awakening, and a lot of people that normally wouldn't have paying attention, and unfortunately, especially when it has to do with your children.
Oh yeah.
Okay, and for those people, and or I want to say even for those people, and your money, because that's another one that they're going after big time. Your money, which is which I hate to say it, this is why everybody wants to come live in America, because you can come from nothing and become whatever you are willing to work for. How's that?
Yeah.
That's
I think another thing they want, why they're trying to get a lot of people come to America right now illegally, is that the population growth is falling off a cliff. The reproduction rates falling off a cliff. So they need a certain amount of people to continue this game going that they have. And so they're desperate. That's what they're doing in Europe as well. They're starting to flood Europe with people. But I think as a civilization evolves, you naturally have that. So when you try and flood a lot of people in like they're doing right now, as we're
Yes.
seeing, it causes a lot of discomfort, a lot of
Yeah.
confusion, a lot of problems. And you empty out jails and you cut police forces. It's going to
Let me
have
tell
a
you something. I was
yeah.
born and raised in Miami, but my background, I'm Cuban.
Oh,
And I
nice.
was living in Miami during the Mariel boat lift. Okay.
Oh, wow. Mhm.
Luckily, all my family was over here. My grandfather, he was a retired cop from the late 1950s prior to Fidel taking over Cuba. But anyway, I was like, what? I was a teenager, I wasn't paying attention, but I remember all the Cubans wanting to go over there and pick up family members. And of course, the story is that when they got there, they were saying, yeah, you could take your auntie, but you see these 10 guys that we just let out of our jail or the insane asylum, they got to go with you.
Ooh.
But come to find out, and the reason why I'm bringing this up is this was we had never gotten broken into. We had never, everything happened after the Mariel boat lift because they let go, okay, of so many problems that they had. They weren't
Nope.
letting go of their doctors or their teachers or people that, no, what they sent over was stuff that they even had problems controlling as far as criminal activity.
Sure.
And they dumped them on us. In Miami, especially, they went to other places, but in Miami, it was horrible. It was horrible. And I can say this as a Cuban because it was like, yeah, amongst them, you had the regular people that were there, but overall, it was the crime rate skyrocketed. And I'm talking about very violent crimes, kind of
Wow.
what you see. And, a lot of them ended up in jail and killed and, but
Hmm.
everybody in Miami, especially if you were Hispanic, had some horrible tale to tell of either a family member that you even brought sometimes. And
Hmm.
the reason I bring that up is that um, I understand what happens when you bring over people that you have no way of knowing what their background is.
Right.
Okay. In other words, there's no a government there that you could say, could you run a background search on this person and tell me, do they have any prior criminal history? Um, who are they? No.
Yeah. Hmm.
All right. And I'm gonna, and as a matter of fact, and one of the things that now they're, I'm sure you've seen this thing with the Epstein, Ghislaine Maxwell, this whole thing going on, and everybody's watching, going. And I was pretty familiar with the what was going on before I got into working for the state. And I was a guardian ad litem, which is I used to work in dependency court as a volunteer
Hmm.
for not representing, but they would assign me a child. Okay.
Beautiful.
And they told me, oh, we're going to let you work in the south end of the county where you live. Come to find out, that was a big lie. I ended up, because I was bilingual. Guess why? Do you know how many foster homes I would go to? And by this, I'm not saying some of these foster homes were fine, where the people that were there had been in the country maybe 2-3 years. And of course, they were approved as foster parents because there's no background on them. There's pure as a driven snow because their history is 3 years old. So of
Wow.
course they're being given access to children placed in the foster program temporarily or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
and they ended up because they didn't speak any English, so I would end up going all over the place as a volunteer, as a guardian ad litem, and I saw this firsthand, and and I was like, and some of them were really nice people. Don't get me wrong, but then others, it was like you could tell they didn't have no English, little, and they were allowing them to keep these children.
Mm.
All right, different ages. And as far as that, what we saw with now with this whole case about the human trafficking, the smuggling, because people don't realize there's two different things. The smuggling and the trafficking are two different things.
Yep.
And part of the problem sometimes they see is that kids that end up in the foster system or runaways and stuff like that,
Mm-hmm.
that
That
there's a big network of that. And I saw that firsthand many years ago. This was over 10 years ago that I was doing the volunteers at Guardian Ad Litem. And so I can testify to the truth of that. And well, getting back to the original, the intuition part.
Oh, yeah, that's important, because that's part of disclosing what's going on with this whole corrupt situation.
Yes.
You don't find that if you're trapped in fear. You don't find these bigger picture things. Or I think a lot of people are trapped in survival situations, and they want that so they can get away with like what you're talking about.
Oh no, and like we said, now that people are being confronted with these things, like I said, I saw this 10, 11, 12 years ago. It was going on. Okay.
Wow.
And now, of course, because of how much publicity Epstein and everything surrounding it has come to the which is in a way is a good thing. I hate to say it, but if you think, this has always been going on. Okay. Yeah. And I'm gonna make a real quick. There's a serial killer. His name is Gerard Schaefer. He ended up getting killed in jail in the 1990s, something like that, 96, by another inmate. Bottom line, he killed a bunch of hitchhikers, like in the 70s, where hitchhiking was real big here in Florida. Okay. Yep. Mm-hmm. And I was reading this in one of the interviews that he did in jail, as this guy was telling you, he described where they were taking kids in a boat off the coast for these sex parties. And these kids were being dumped out there.
Oh, God.
Okay. And this is a guy who's a serial killer here in Florida, but maybe, in other words, this is not the deep level guy that knows stuff that nobody else knows, like an Epstein.
Yeah.
Okay. If this is a criminal, and I'm thinking, how many people knew about this stuff? Wow. And never did anything about it. Because I don't know, what is it, 2 or 3 miles when you're, how is it? I know there's a certain distance that you're off the coast and that you're out of basically your maritime law. In other words, you're not under the jurisdiction of the United States anymore. I don't know if it's 3 miles or I don't know. In other words, they know exactly. And of course, that was it. And then you dump your witnesses. How's that?
Jesus.
And I remember reading this, like, because I was doing some research on him because of he did a Port St. Lucie plantation in Florida. And I was reading this and I'm like, God, if he knew about it, it's almost like I could see that happening. I could see that was something that was definitely going on. And people maybe just turned a blind eye to it because God knows.
He's just a little guy. So he's
nobody. He's a nobody. I mean, he was a killer. He's a serial killer, but.
Not that the Epstein scandal is going to be a lot larger than what we're seeing right now. So I think that I believe, because that was definitely CIA and Mossad and MI6. They were using him and Ghislaine to basically spy on people. Because look at all the places they had. They were in New Mexico. They had an island down the Bahamas. They had Palm Beach and all these places in New York, and multi-million dollar properties. Mm-hmm. And they're sex trafficking. They're bringing in young women, girls, for sexual favors for high end people like one of the princes of England, presidents, and so forth. So they're getting information on them to use it to control these people.
Right, because it makes me think that everything was the blackmail.
There's so much in between, that we're going to see, like you're talking about, some stuff that's really going to affect consciousness. So you have to learn how to let that go through you. Don't get trapped in it.
Well, so, I think that this comes back to the mindset.
Yeah.
When I talk about average people, I'm not being goody two shoes. I'm talking your normal person, no pedophilia, none of that crap.
Yeah.
Okay. We want to resist thinking that we have certain government factions or people in authority that could be capable of this. Because if we open that door, it's like, where does this lead? So we don't want to see that, what we had for many years. I don't want to believe that they not only didn't prosecute it, in some cases actually encouraged it or fostered it. Because that's very worrisome. Think about that. And I think a lot of people, they're like, oh no, man, no, that can't be. And it's like, yeah, it could be. And I think we're finding out the hard way just how.
Well, we're going to find out that it's happened on the political, all the way to the top, all the way to the top.
Yeah.
In the
Oh yeah.
realm. All many of them are involved in that.
Yes.
So yeah,
that's why that I think that that a lot of people are deciding that they want to retire early. It's like,
yeah,
I think I just, before the scandal breaks, at least I'll save face. And I tell everybody, this is, and I'm going to go off into the woo here, but we'll go there.
Do it.
A lot of people, you could say, okay, these are okay, they're pathological in the sense that they have no remorse and everything. I said, and one time I was in my prior show, Michael, and you tell me if you ever ran across this, where you know how people, they say about people being possessed, demonic possession, whatever. And I said, there is such a thing as somebody that's perfectly possessed. In other words, they welcome that takeover of their personality, where they have no remorse, no empathy. And I'm going to say, let's say not the person that's the transporter. You're taking these bunch of kids and they're going to get abused, raped, and probably killed. But all you care about it, you're not doing it. You're not the one doing it. But you pretty know what the end for these kids is going to be, or women, or whatever.
Sure.
And you do it. Did you ever run across people like that where you could see that there is no, how can I say, no mercy? How's that?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I've seen that in many people because they're possessed, like you talk about. So a lot of the terrorists that we went after were possessed, demonically possessed, and they got power out of that, and that's what the possession does. It gives them a power that normally they wouldn't have otherwise. So people like us, people, you and I, and people listening to the show, we're good people. We're not possessed. We don't have demonic figures on us. We don't understand what that would be like. They do. And I can tell you, I've been around these people, and they're psychopaths, like you're talking about. They're possessed. It's just I can see demons, and I fight demons. So these people have demons on them. It's real. It's a real thing. And they will mess everything up. So I have to be very careful when you go after demons, as I found out the hard way. I found out I ended up dead one time. And I saw
what happened. You just can't leave that there, can you?
Yeah, I know. This is a great story. I tell this a lot. So I'm in Iraq. I'd learned how to go after demons, and I was like, okay. Well, I didn't really learn. I was like, I'd heard about it, and some people told me what they did, and I was like, I'm going to do that too. And so I'm like looking. I'm kind of remote viewing into the etheric realm. Who's doing the terrorist attacks in the beginning when I was in Iraq in 2003? So I was like, who is this? And I saw a guy. Had a mustache and had the headdress and everything. This guy would eventually, as we would find out later, was Zarqawi. So I saw him in my remote view, who was doing the terrorist attacks. And so I'm like, I'm gonna go fight him, on the etheric realm. And his demon came off him, and it was wicked. And it came after me, and I was like, whoa, way out of my light, way out of my league. So I boom back in my body. I was like, whoa, that was crazy. So 2 days later, I'm floating out of my body. I'm like, oh, I'm having an out-of-body experience. I always want to have one of these. And I look back down, and I'm dead. I'm blown to pieces. I'm like, oh, no, I'm dead.
Let me tell you something. Believe it or not, it doesn't look like it, but the hair is standing up on the back of my head when you're talking about that. Go ahead. Keep going.
So I'm like, oh, my God, I'm dead. It's like, that's a bummer, because I'm starting to feel like I could really help humanity, because I was remote viewing and doing all this crazy stuff. I was going into the intuitive realms on a different level. So then I get this presence, this feeling, and it's like, what is that? So I look up, and there's this massive angel that's looking down at me, and it's like absolutely exquisite. So I didn't even know what archangels were at the time, because I grew up Baptist in the Southern Baptist way. It's a Catholic thing, but there was definitely a massive, beautiful angel, and I was later learned that was Archangel Michael, because it had the same look and everything. So he looked at me. I looked into his eyes, and this love energy just came into me and just lit up every cell in my body. That was put back in time, back into my body, so that I wasn't going to die. And the missile was deflected that I had seen had killed me. And so I was like, I sat up in bed, and there was a huge explosion. I was like, whoa, that was it. I saw an angel, and it brought me back. And so that really happened. So over time, I started to see I had these abilities. I started to see remote viewing better. I started remote influence, so I could stop attacks from happening, and through a love energy vibration. So I started putting out love energy vibration, like Archangel Michael put love into me. So I
Mm-hmm.
just sent out these waves of energy of love, and it stopped attacks in cities that I was in. It's just crazy stuff.
Let me ask you, what do you basically they put out a hit on you after you saw the demon? Is that what you're saying? That it they went after you, in other words?
Yeah, that it's almost like the Matrix. You know how you see in the Matrix where Neo goes, and the agents, were like into another body. So that's what they
Mm-hmm.
do, with their minions. So we
Okay.
have all these minions out there. They're serving Lucifer or whatever, and they jump into a body and they're like directed, and boom, missile comes at me, and I die. So they're very
Wow.
powerful. The demons are the demonic realm, obviously, because look what they're doing. They're keeping these wars going. They're keeping everyone locked down in this like crazy, system that we have going on right now. So there's a lot of demons. We've all heard this is good against evil right now, and it's true because a lot of
Mm-hmm.
these people that we believe are good people in power, they're demonically possessed.
Right, because
Right?
people think of the Hollywood version that when you're possessed, you spit out pea soup. That's not the way it
No,
works.
no, it's like it'd be like think of any political leader that's in charge right now, and
That's
that's
scary.
that's,
That's
that's
scary. I know.
demonically possessed. Yeah, so I look at a lot of them. I work against all of those people.
Let
And
me ask you, when you do remote viewing, do you go into what they call the middle plane?
yes, yes.
Okay. All right. And I'm going to ask you, should people remote viewing without knowing what they're doing? Or what is your advice on that?
My advice on that is to what I say is bubble yourself up in love.
Okay.
So imagine, and you can call in archangels, angels, God. You always want to protect yourself, as I learned from that one experience. From that point,
Okay.
I started to use love, and I never went into attack because that's one of the beautiful things about what's going on right now. No one's fighting.
All right.
That's magnificent because when we fight, then we fall into their trap. That's what they want.
Yeah.
That's where they're powerful. So just like I described how I wanted to fight this guy Zarqawi, his demon, that's not a realm. The anger realm, the fear realm, they are super powerful in that realm. They will destroy you if you go into that realm and try and go against them.
Right.
But
Your
you come,
motive was altruistic, but just the way you were going about it is what you're
but if
saying.
you go at them in love, like I talked about, you're the most powerful force in the universe because you're tapped into the most powerful force in the universe, which is God force, and you come in and use that for that energy. They are they're gone. That's what I would do with the demon possessed terrorists that I would focus on. So I took out many terrorists because all I would do is I would just think love surrounding them all the time. Demons don't like that energy, so they go away. So they lose their power. They lose their whatever it is that makes them powerful. It
That
makes them
mojo,
vulnerable.
that yeah.
They get found like we found Osama bin Laden. So Osama bin Laden, I worked on him for a year. Usually it would take a year of me
Mm-hmm.
focusing on someone, sending them the love vibration, and then they were gone. It happened over and over and over again. I've used that on political figures too. So
That is
we're
such a
yeah,
great story because people don't realize
yeah.
that what the source of their power is not really them.
Yes,
And
yeah,
this is the thing, love is light, and most of these beings
beautiful.
are sourced in darkness, and they don't want to be anywhere near the light.
It's not a good
None at
vibration.
all.
No, no. And
So
you're the most powerful.
yes.
You just destroy them. It's like prayer, tapping into, I mean, whatever it is for you, um, you know, whatever God you worship. A lot of gods out there are very,
Mm-hmm.
very powerful. And God energy in the angelic realm and
Yes.
Jesus, whatever you connect with and you feel very strong and energized with, you can use that oftentimes and and send that love energy out, and it's very, very powerful. Surround yourself with love. Surround your loved ones with love. Uh, if they're having problems, you send them love. I could feel people sending prayers to me when I was overseas. I knew that I was protected not only from evil, because I was focused on being love alive in the world, I guess, and using the angelic realm, but also because I was getting that love from people back home and prayer groups and so forth. So it's very, very, very effective.
Do you ever put guardians on your property? You
Oh,
ever call in
absolutely,
guardians?
absolutely. If I could turn this around, I have like salt lamps. Salt crystals are very, very
Ah.
powerful. Yeah, good. Yeah. So it's energy. It's another thing. It's another energy field
Mm-hmm.
that the dark spirits and so forth, they don't like that energy.
No.
They don't like that vibrational energy. It's very, very powerful, very uplifting, very beautiful, because I have them all over my house, and I have crystals and so forth.
Okay.
But thought energy is one of the most powerful things.
Yes.
You can save your house. You can do all these kinds, but it's all the intention that goes into that, because the dark ones use that stuff too. They
Yeah.
have crystals, they have sage, they do all, but they use it in a negative way, and they're
Right.
very powerful in their own way. I let them do their thing. That's fine. But when it's going to affect me or people that I love, or my country, then I'm going to use love vibration to protect and take that negative energy out. So
Yeah. People don't realize how powerful that is. Because
everyone,
unfortunately, people are thought that it shows weakness,
yes,
and
no.
it's not necessarily that's the way it is.
When I started going intuitive, that was when I became like Superman. I mean, I was always, incredible. I was always an expert shot. I was very fast, but when I started going intuitive, everything went faster. I just went to a different level.
Okay.
Yeah, it became even like more powerful, more effective. My thinking was faster, and of course, I was looking into the future, literally looking
Right.
into the future and seeing things coming. I was directing and correcting and making sure that didn't happen to us. So it's amazing, what we all have the potential of. So that's great that you're into that. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if you want to come back, but I'm going to ask you real quick. Do you think that there's any type of influence of ETs, negative or positive, in all of this, somewhere in all of this?
Oh yeah, of course there is. And there was positive for a long time. They were involved with the Germans for quite Nazis for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Antarctica. There was like we sent a fleet down there. Admiral Byrd sent a fleet down there, carriers, and they got hammered. They had their technology was far more advanced than what we had at the time. Eventually, we got the technology, and now the good guys are in control. So yeah, there's good ETs and negative ETs. The negative ETs are off planet now. They're off
Okay.
many of the they're off the moon, they're off Mars, so they're being kicked out of our whole solar system. So there is good things. Yeah, there's definitely positive ETs from Venus. The Venusians have been helping us quite a bit. Pleiadians, Arcturians. There's all kinds of different star seed children that are coming in now. I
Mm-hmm.
work with a woman that's she's talking about how there's like seventh dimensional beings that spent
Okay.
a whole 100 years training to come back down to 3D to help humans ascend to the higher levels of consciousness. 100
Right.
years to do that. Now they're incarnate. So it's a
Right.
very
The indigo children and
yeah,
these are the kids that were born, or how can I say,
yeah,
they chose
exactly.
incarnation at certain times,
Mm-hmm.
basically because of that we're going to ascend, or, hopefully.
Helping us. Yeah, helping us overcome the negative and the negative influences.
But you know
That's
what? I'm going to tell you something though, Michael, and this is the reason I bring this up. Sometimes people, you know how everybody talks about the ETs, that they turned off the nuclear arsenals and blah blah, and everybody is always wants to let go of their responsibility personally and as humans. The ETs are going to save us. the angels are going to save us. And it's like, stop it.
Right.
You have to be responsible for the outcome that you want. This is,
Excellent.
let's face it, it's our planet. It's our
Yeah.
lives. It's our behavior. And people are like, well, if it gets really, the ETs are going to come and they're going to save us, or the whatever is going to save us.
Mm-hmm.
And people don't want to take that personal responsibility, always hoping that the cavalry is going to ride over the hill and we're the cavalry.
Save them, yeah. No, it's in a way they have, because our consciousness reached a certain level where we didn't want, the negative influence to the point where it happened, and so that allowed positive ET forces to come in and remove the negative ET forces.
Okay.
So at least we reached that level. Now it's up to humans to overcome the human problem that we have right now.
Right.
That's these negatively influenced beings that are basically running the show right now. So we need to create this new environment, this new world, break free from their old systems, and we're doing that. It's happening, but it takes, I think, as more people get involved, we're having this beautiful conversation. As people listen to this, they get inspired. They want to go out and get involved. That is what makes this happen, and makes it happen faster. So the more people get involved, the more people share, this video with others, and talk and have great conversations. I had great conversations last night with a whole big group of people that are very inspired to, create change here in Florida. That's the way every community has to be, and they've tried to restrict us, mask us, and keep us separated. We have to stop. We have to get together and plan this thing out, work together. It's not going to be violence. I don't see violence, but we're going to be smarter than they are. And they are not very creative. They're in the dark realms. They don't have the creativity power that we do. So that's the thing that's the way we overcome them, through our creativity, the ability to work together. They don't work well together. Look around at all the cities they've destroyed.
God, yeah.
It's like every city where they've allowed, the police to be cut. They've emptied the jails, and they've, allowed negative groups to come in and riot.
Yes.
And, those cities are a mess. They're having the highest crime rates ever right now.
I was telling my husband, I said, I don't think New York's ever going to come back. And I know there's people, and he's from New Jersey. He was born in Brooklyn and New Jersey. And I tell him, I don't think that whole New York that we think of with the Wall Street and, that it was the mecca of all these industries of fashion and the Big Apple. Yeah. Sometimes I don't think that Big Apple's ever going to come back. I hate to say it, but.
You're right. Not the way it was, like you're saying. The stuff that people think that, someone's going to come in and say this and everything's going back to the way it was. Absolutely not. It will never, ever go back to the way it was. It's going to change. It is changing. And that change is what we create going forward.
Yes.
So we have to get involved. It's like, it's hands off. Okay, it's time for everybody to, get focused. What do you want? What do you want to create here? This is a quantum level experience that's going on now. You can change this thing, but you have to change it. We're not coming in to do it, because if we do it, it's more powerful. If we learn, the system, if we start to work with it, we can make a lot of great stuff happen.
Absolutely. And people don't realize, again, what we said originally was people don't realize you as an individual, how powerful you are. If you were not powerful, there would not be such a concerted effort to corral us or to make us behave a certain way. They'd be like, who cares? Do whatever. No, they, even on an individual basis. And I think a lot of times because of the enormity, sometimes of it, people are like, oh man, this is beyond me. I can't do anything about this. It's like, you'd be surprised. You'd be surprised what we're capable of. I think that there's a lot of stuff that we have untapped as humans. And we've been dumbed down. And I'm not talking just academically. I'm talking about dumbed down as far as how much we can accomplish.
Right. Yeah.
Michael, for my podcast listeners, I'm going to have a link to your website on the credits of the show, but for the podcast listeners, what's your website?
Thank you very much. So michaelkjaco.com. That's where all my stuff is. And that's how you can get hold of my stuff. So it's real simple, just michaelkjaco.com.
Let me ask you, do you Do you offer anything for anybody that wants to work with their intuition or develop it, or like what you were saying that they have something that they want to achieve?
Yeah, I have several courses. I have a intuition course for developing your intuition, remote viewing, remote influencing, remote healing, past life regression, uh, body design, all kind of crazy stuff. So there's 13 different courses and books. I have like a couple books. The Intuitive Warrior was a book that I released like 10 years ago. Still going strong. Still doing a really good job. I would say start there. If you're
Okay.
like you're what is intuition? I don't know about intuition. You may sometimes have intuition. You have intuition all the time. It's always there. It's always on right there for you. So the Intuitive Warrior, I basically talk about my experiences, how I developed my intuition. That's a great place to start. You can get that on my website or at Amazon. There's lots of different ways to get that. And then I have, like I said, lots of courses. I have like clothing line, all kind of crazy stuff. So
Wow.
yeah,
That's great.
yeah, it's fun. It's come along. I was like, I don't know, I don't know about all this because I was like, Navy SEAL, CIA. I was all secretive. So I was like, but I really feel humanity could, I got some good stuff for humanity because I'd always shared it with people and the teams, and I knew I was a great instructor, and I love to teach and share. So I was like, this would really help humanity if humanity would get this intuition, we could stop all the wars, and we could stop all these crazy
Let me tell you something.
political types, controlling us.
Yeah. And believe it or not, I know this is very cliche. You know that saying about it's not the destination, it's the journey.
Oh
And
yeah,
that's something that we have got to learn on a day-to-day basis. It is our journey. And
beautiful.
we can't get saying, well, when we get there, when this is achieved, when whoever is voted in, in the meantime, we have to live our lives on a daily, with whatever it is that we want to create for ourselves,
Very good.
whatever it might be. Thank you, Michael. It has been absolutely wonderful. I could ask you, because I did a lot of past life regression, and I would be like, man, I
So I got some past life.
had some past life regressions. Like,
Maybe we should do a show on that. That'd be fun.
yeah.
Yeah.
Let me ask you, the first time that you were taken for past life regression, were you able to see it okay, or what?
Oh yeah. It was. Oh boy.
Because I have this feeling that did you have like, man, I don't know. Did you have like sometimes bad endings to your life?
Oh yeah, of course.
So I was like,
yeah, really bad ones. But because of those bad endings, they can be traumatizing. They lock stuff in. So when you actually have the regression, you're like, oh, that's why I have those problems.
Yes.
And you release that, and it's like you have those problems. You don't have those problems anymore.
That's the aha moment.
I would say, all the stuff that I've done, the past life information that I've learned has been the most rewarding. It's like opened so much for me, and it's like helped me overcome so many difficult things in my life. It was just, I was like, oh, I've been like angry lifetime after lifetime, or like for thousands of years. I'm not gonna be angry anymore. How about that? I'm stop. I'm stop. It's stupid. And that's sometimes it takes something like that for you to see, because you're like, oh, angry is good. It's like you're strong. You're like a man. You're like and no, it's not good at all. So and then when I look back on past lives, I'm like, oh, I was bad angry back then. It's like, I got to stop that. So that was one of the things that I overcame.
Tell me how angry you are, and I'll tell you how scared you are. Because basically, that's
right. Yeah,
I'd rather be angry than scared. It's a good.
Yeah, that's true, because that's one of the levels. You get scared, scared, or fear. I think angry, and then just go along with
anger is just a good fake out for being scared. I hate to say it, but whether you want to say it or not, did you ever regress to being a woman?
I've never seen myself as a woman. Really? And that's interesting, because I was like, oh, of course I was a woman. But I've had psychics. I've talked to a lot of psychics. I've done a lot of psychic work.
Right.
I just tons and tons of it. And then eventually I got to the point where I could do my own. I can actually go in and see my own past lives now. Okay. And that's what I teach other people too. So there is a way that we can all go in and look at it. It's kind
Mm-hmm.
of like remote viewing your past lifetimes.
Yeah.
So that's what I learned over time. But yeah, I've had some crazy lifetimes.
Yeah. The people don't realize that sometimes you have these emotional hooks in you from some
Yes,
trauma or something that still triggers
absolutely.
your behavior now. And you sometimes can't figure out, like, man, why do I feel that way? Or why do I react that way? You're like, I don't get it.
Hmm.
And it's just that emotional hook from something that happened to you.
Yeah, and you start to see once you get into your past lifetimes, you start to see you have a pattern. You have a pattern throughout time. You know, the way I think now is the way I've thought for hundreds of lives. Well, I would say at least 100 because I don't know. I haven't found hundreds of lives yet, but I
Okay.
have found close to 100, and they're
Okay.
historical. It's pretty well.
That is so interesting. People,
It's
people, I
got
have
it's
people ask me all the time and go, whether it is, and I say, majority of people lived, you were ordinary nobody. So, in other words, as far as documenting and proving that, hey, this person that you see in your past life ever existed, I said, if you look historically, very few people were ever noted in history as far as that you could say, this document, the most of us in regression are nobodies. When I mean nobodies, I mean ordinary people. And even back then, nothing was ever written or logged about ordinary people that you could say, well, you know what? I checked back on this date what this person's describing. And yeah, I found out that that was true. Sometimes you can about certain events, but most overall, it's very difficult to basically verify a past life regression identity. How's that?
Yeah. Well, it's not that hard really, because there's people that have gone just into because they'll be born into a family that they have died in, and
Mm-hmm.
so they find that and they're like, whoa, you're like, Papa come back, from like two generations back,
Yeah.
and they were like, oh my gosh. So they find, but you don't. A lot of times you don't bring a lot of that information with you. It's almost like everything's white, and then you
Right. I
come
know
in.
that some things that basically you reincarnate in the same group of people. Maybe they change their roles, but it's
Yes.
like the same players.
Yep.
Um, and then you got to straighten stuff out that you screwed up before.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, you do what you can. I mean,
But yeah, I know. But and
you'll
sometimes
do your stuff, but you can't force somebody else to
no,
get
you can't.
their act. It's
Free
that's
will
up
is
to
free
them.
will.
So
It's a
yeah, it's
great
all
thing, but boy, talk about personal responsibility. Hey,
and it's all
thank
about responsibility.
it
Everything's
is. It
about
is.
responsibility.
Everybody is like it's
Our freedom is about responsibility, and a lot of us have like shirked that responsibility.
you better
So I
believe
spent
it.
my whole life, protecting and helping everyone, First Amendment, all kind of crazy, Second Amendment, everything.
Hmm.
And I see that a lot of people have gotten lax in that, and it's like it's slipped away.
Yeah.
So we have to we're all responsible.
Yes.
Everyone's responsible for that. It's not like because like we talked about, everybody's waiting for somebody to come save them while they eat popcorn on the couch. It's not going to happen. You got to get involved. You got to
Well,
get out.
we've been, and I'm going to give an example. Overly regulated. Even I'm talking about that everything. I remember when I moved out here, I had some good old boys come and work on the thing, and I was like, I need a permit for this, and I need a permit for that. And they're like, man, we never need no permit to do that. This, we do that. We just do it. You know.
Nice.
In other
Yeah.
words, the mentality was you don't need Big Brother to come and tell you it's okay to put up a carport. Is my point. And
Yeah.
people, we're so used to it. We've been indoctrinated that it's
Mhm.
okay. All right. And they're like, no, they grew up in this area for generations, some of them. All
Yeah.
right. And they were like, you didn't go get permission about everything for, plus, of course, the money you have to pay, uh, you know, stuff like that. It was like, and you could tell I was like, but we need to do that. And they'd look at me like, no, wait, we'll figure something out here. And they were some of the things they came up there, ideas, ingenuity as like, let's fix this or let's do it that way. And I was like, man, you could tell I've fallen into that. We're told do it that way. And we're like, okay. And we've been indoctrinated to not question authority. How's that?
Oh yeah.
And we should. We
They
should.
did a good job. They get it. I mean, a lot of people just don't do it anymore. But I think we're learning the hard way. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's going to happen. It's just changing very quickly.
Yeah. Again, Michael, I'm not going to keep you any longer because I know you probably got things to do and everything. You have to come back. We have to talk. We're going to have a past life regression show.
Yeah,
and we're going to talk about past. I'll talk about mine. I've done a lot of past life regressions. I've done regressions with attachments, people, weird stuff. And then we could talk about some of the ones that you remember, and also the technique that you use that you say to recall the past lives. Once you get beyond being over analytical, because this is what a lot of people would find, that I see myself. No, that doesn't make it, like they over analyze. They want to and it's like, let it go. Let go, let go. Just let it roll. That film, let it go in your head and see where it takes you. Nobody's going to call you stupid. Just go with it.
Right. Very good.
And a lot of people, I want to talk to you about that. You've been wonderful.
It'll be a great show. We'll have fun. I love it.
Absolutely, darling. Take care.
You too. Thanks for a great show.
No, absolutely. You've been wonderful. Take care.
Good.
Hey guys, what did you think? Oh, past life. We covered everything. God, this was great. Past life regression. Dick Sutphin and how we get subliminal manipulation. This is man. And I was trying to compress it. I was like, should I ask him about that? No, but I want to ask him about that. No, but I want to ask him about that. You know what? See, that book, I agree. Anybody want to work with intuition, your first bet is go get his book, And I'm going to say this, especially for the men out there, because men sometimes have this thing about that being intuitive or relying on your intuition is like a woman thing. You know how they say a women's intuition? I beg to differ. That intuition is a human thing. All right. It's a human thing where I guess my point that I was always trying to make is he used it or he developed it while he was doing highly dangerous work in a foreign land, whatever he was doing. But intuition works in your favor, us in our normal everyday lives, especially, I must say this, especially because we become so reliant on technology. Okay. The phone, I'm not, the phone, I put a reminder, in other words, we all these conveniences, let's call them what they are, these conveniences basically have buried our intuition. We don't need to exercise it. And God knows, if we get a flash of, I'm going to say, I hate to say it, but sometimes fear or negative presentiments make more of an impact than good stuff. Like, when you meet somebody and you go, man, I really feel good about this person. But unfortunately, it's the negative stuff. And when I say negative, it's like fear or be careful or watch out that really makes an impact on us. And we've kind of deadened that. All right. And by this, I don't mean you become so hypervigilant that you think around every corner is some catastrophe, because that's catastrophic thinking, and that definitely will make you anxious. That's why I think that what Michael was talking about is where you develop intuition, where the intuition doesn't cause more fear or paralyze you. Okay. The intuition is there to help you, and maybe the intuition, because that's why it means, doesn't make sense. And that's why I'm talking about the men thing, that men sometimes think if something doesn't make sense, I'm not going to believe that. It's BS. That's what intuition is, that you have a feeling about something or someone that logic doesn't that logic, intuition are like on totally different pages. And you're like, logically, why should I feel that way? Logically, that's the way I always go to work. Or logically, I do this way and nothing's that bad ever happened. And then your intuition comes in and says, stop, there's something going on, or don't go that way. Or, hey, maybe you should ask somebody to walk with you to your car. And you could say, but there's no reason for me to do that. Okay. And that's where people dismiss their intuition, because their logic, they prize logic. Like if somebody's going to come and point the finger at them and make fun of them for basically following their intuition. One of the things I wanted from that book that I mentioned is called The Gift of Fear by Gavin DeBecker. And there was two quotes from it that this was highlighted by readers. I'm going to read them to you because I think they're very good. One is, no is a word that must never be negotiated because the person who chooses not to hear it is trying to control you. Yeah. Second quote here, highlighted by the readers of the book, which, by the way, this is over 7,000 of them. I don't remember where I first heard this simple description of one dramatic contrast between the genders, but it is strikingly accurate. At core, men are afraid women will laugh at them, while at core, women are afraid men will kill them. And by the way, this is in majority, but I know for a fact that women do kill men. Women do kill men. I don't. Obviously, it's not in the same proportion, but women do kill men, and not always in self-defense. Not like I killed him because I had to defend myself. Because I know there's guys going out there. Oh, what are the bad guys? No. I'm not saying that, but I'm just saying proportionally, because of the strength. It's just, let's face it. You know, it's just the way it is, whether we like it or not. I know there's a lot of people going, Marlene, there shouldn't be any difference, but there is. Sorry, it is. We're different, male, female, strengths. And you know what? Whether we like to admit it or not, in your own skin, you know what your strengths are, you know what your weaknesses are, and you know when somebody can overpower you. And I'm not talking mentally, I'm talking physically. All right. And sometimes it can be even somebody the same sex. All right. And we know that if somebody can overpower you physically, if that person, for whatever reason, decides one day to turn on you and it becomes physical, how's that? There's a basic survival instinct. God, yes. Survival instinct, very important, that we should never throw away, which leads into that intuition, which is part of our survival instinct, which we should foster and take care of, is when that intuition kicks in and tells you, don't go there, don't go with this person, maybe go around the block before parking, a bunch of stuff, just weird stuff. Or take a different route to work, or don't get on that plane, or that we should listen to it. And you will never, ever get, chances are, verification that you were right. Because, like I said, when you dodged the bullet, you dodged it. How do you quantify dodging a bullet? You just got to develop that trust in yourself. And like I said, to differentiate between being catastrophic, like everybody and everything is out to get me, which is why I would say definitely you have to check out Michael's website, his book, start with that, look at his courses. Because I'm telling you, even though fear is important in that context where it click, your intuition goes off, your subconscious mind is working, giving you cues like, hey, look, watch. Did you hear that? Did you see that person that, maybe he's been following you for two blocks? Okay. But we can't live in fear all the time. In other words, that fear is appropriate only in that moment, in that situation. But outside of that, living in systematic fear, hour after hour, day after day, will wear a person down, physically, emotionally, spiritually, psychically. Okay, which is what I was mentioning to him about that. We live like in this industry of fear where we're always like, if it's not one thing, it's the other, and we're like, and that's why you have people saying, man, I have problems falling asleep. I have problems staying asleep because I wake up and then almost that fear and we don't understand where it's coming from. And there's a lot of stuff in the background. Okay. Anxiety will put you into a hypnotic state. Okay. Where you will, how's this? If you're really highly anxious, it brings down the critical factor. Okay. in your mind, which would normally question stuff like, and let's say you start watching the news. Let's go with the news. Okay. All of a sudden, everything that you're hearing, you take it as gospel truth. If it's a bad story about something, it's like catastrophic. If there's like, oh, if we don't do this, this bad thing will happen. You take this as the end of the world is at hand, you know? And basically, when you start getting that repetition over and over and over again, let me tell you something. It makes a person, for lack of a better word, crazy. And I think that that's what I'm saying. We have to rein the fear back in. Plus, by the way, fear will immobilize you. Fear will make you stagnant. And when I mean stagnant, you know what he was talking about, where it will immobilize you in a fight or flight situation. But fear also, outside of that context, fear will make you become stagnant because you're afraid to make a move. You're afraid to do this, to do that, to plan, to what, oh, you know what? Things are bad. And I can't, no. Oh, you become stagnant. And believe it or not, I had a lot of my clients that they desperately wanted to change. They wanted to move forward. And they recognized that they were stagnant, but their fear was like an anchor around their legs. Because that fear was overriding their desire that they knew that they had to make a certain change. That stagnancy is like, let's face it, until we're pushing up daisies, it's not good for human beings to be stagnant, no matter what your age is. You should always have something going on, whatever it might be. And that stagnation for the human soul is very, very bad, very bad. And that's what fear does. It immobilizes us. It makes us hopeless. It makes us believe that things will not get better, or that the enormity of the problem is so huge that there's no way to overcome it. Yeah. Hopefully, I'm going to try to get Michael back. We got to talk about past life regression. Again, guys, thank you for being part of my audience. You're all wonderful. I have a lot of great guests coming back on and new ones. And again, go to myamigoschronicles.com, go to marlenepardo.com. I have links there where you could download the MP3 file for the show without commercial interruption. I also have links to all the podcast platforms. I also have links to the videos. If you don't want to find me on YouTube, I'm on Rumble, I'm on BitChute, I'm on Daily Motion, I'm on Cloud Hub. Wherever you go, just look for me. MP Pellicer, Marlene Pellicer, Stories of the Supernatural, all over the place. I have links on the websites that will take you to any of these platforms. So if you want to either view the video or listen to the podcast version of the show, you can do so, or any of the series, okay? So please come back next week because I have a lot of good guests, a lot of interesting stuff. See you soon.